At 30,000 feet, the captain collapsed. Alarms screamed through the cabin. A female passenger covered her ears, trembling. She was once a test pilot, but banned from flying after an accident that killed 3 of her teammates. People shouted, "Does anyone know how to fly? Help us!" She shook her head, tears falling. "I promised I'd never touch the controls again." But then she saw a little boy beside her clutching his mother, crying, her breathing quickened. She stood up abruptly. "This is Falcon 2-1, requesting control." The F-22 patrol pilots outside went dead silent. "My God, she's alive?" Elena Hayes, 34 years old, former test pilot for the United States Air Force, once known by the call sign Falcon 2-1. 3 years ago, during a training mission, the thrust vectoring system malfunctioned. She lost control. The accident killed 3 of her teammates. She survived, but faced severe disciplinary action and a permanent flight ban. The media called her the pilot who killed her team through arrogance. The headlines were relentless, brutal. She left the military in disgrace, disappeared from public view, became a shadow. Since then, Elena worked as a maintenance engineer for a commercial airline. She avoided cockpits, avoided flight decks, avoided anything that reminded her of who she used to be. Today, she was flying commercial from Los Angeles to London to attend a memorial service for the pilots lost in that accident 3 years ago. She dressed simply, wore a baseball cap pulled low, tried to hide a face that had once been all over the news. The passenger next to her studied her features with suspicious eyes. "You used to be a pilot, right? I remember that incident." Elena gave a thin smile. "I'm just an engine maintenance technician now." When she helped an elderly woman fasten her a seatbelt, a young flight attendant noticed something. She doesn't talk much, but her eyes are different, very calm. At the back of the cabin, another passenger muttered loud enough to be heard, "Can't believe they let someone like her on a plane. She got her whole team killed." Elena didn't respond, just quietly closed a small notebook with a silver wing emblem engraved on the cover, a memento from someone who didn't make it home. She'd carried that notebook every day for 3 years. Inside were names, dates, final words spoken over the radio before everything went wrong. Marcus Chen, 29. "Elena, eject now." Sarah Rodriguez, 32. "I can't stabilize." David Kumar, 27. "Tell my wife I..." The rest was static, then silence. Elena had replayed those final moments 10,000 times, in her sleep, in quiet moments, in the middle of conversations when her mind would drift back to that day. She'd been the flight leader, the most experienced, the one everyone trusted, and she'd failed them. The flight attendant who'd noticed her calm demeanor came by with drinks. "Can I get you anything?" "Just water, please." As the attendant poured, she glanced at Elena's hands. Scarred, burned, the kind of scars that come from pulling yourself out of a burning aircraft. "You're very brave," the attendant said quietly. Elena looked up, surprised. "What?" "Whatever you survived, you're brave to keep going." Elena's throat tightened. She managed a small nod. The attendant moved on. Elena stared out the window at the clouds below. She thought about the memorial service waiting for her in London, the families who blamed her, the commanders who'd stripped her of everything, the public that had turned her into a monster. She thought about quitting, about not showing up, about disappearing completely. But she'd made a promise to herself. She would face them. She would honor the fallen, even if they hated her for it. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. The captain's voice came over the intercom, smooth and professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 33,000 feet. Elena closed her eyes, tried to sleep, tried to quiet the voices in her head, but sleep never came easy anymore. Flight attendant later testified, "When I saw her helping the elderly passenger with her seatbelt, something about the way she moved, so precise, so gentle, I suddenly couldn't believe this was a cold-blooded killer like the media said. There was kindness in her actions." 45 minutes into the flight, Elena was staring out the window when she felt it. A subtle vibration, wrong frequency, wrong rhythm. Her engineer's instinct kicked in immediately. Something was off. She sat up straighter, listened, then the world exploded. A massive explosion tore through the right wing. The cabin pressure dropped instantly. Oxygen masks fell from the ceiling. Passengers screamed. The plane tilted violently to the right. Luggage flew from overhead compartments. A woman was thrown from her seat. In the cockpit, the captain was slammed against the instrument panel by the force of the decompression. He collapsed unconscious. The first officer grabbed for the controls, but his hand was badly injured. Blood poured from a gash across his palm. He couldn't grip the yoke. "We're going down. I've lost control." His voice cracked over the intercom. The plane began to spiral. Elena sat frozen in her seat. Her heart hammered. Her breathing came in short, rapid gasps. She knew this feeling. The sound of alarms, the smell of burning fuel, the flickering emergency lights. She'd lived this nightmare before. A part of her screamed, "Don't stand up. Don't make the same mistake." But then she heard it, a child crying behind her. "Mommy, I'm scared." Elena's hands gripped the armrest until her knuckles turned white. She saw Marcus's face, Sarah's smile, David's wedding photo he'd shown her the morning of the accident. She heard their voices. "Elena, you're the best pilot we know. If anyone can save us, it's you." But she'd failed them all. The plane dropped another 1,000 feet. The spiral tightened. People were praying, crying, holding each other. The flight attendant who'd called her brave was clinging to a seat, tears streaming down her face. Elena ripped off her baseball cap, stood up on shaking legs. She pushed her way toward the cockpit, fighting against the tilting floor. A flight attendant blocked her path. "Ma'am, you need to return to your seat." Elena's voice came out steady despite the terror churning in her gut. "If no one gets in there, we're all dead." "You can't. I'm a pilot. Let me through." The attendant hesitated, looked at Elena's scarred hands. Her unwavering eyes, she stepped aside. Elena burst into the cockpit. The scene was chaos. The captain unconscious on the floor. The first officer struggling with one hand on the controls, failing, alarms screaming, warning lights flashing red across every panel. The altimeter was spinning down. 28,000 feet. 27,000. 26. Elena's hand reached for the yoke and froze. Memories crashed over her like a wave. The last time she'd touched controls. The explosion. The fire. The screaming. "Elena, eject! I can't stabilize. Tell my wife." Her hand trembled, pulled back. She couldn't do it, couldn't risk failing again, couldn't be responsible for more deaths. The first officer looked at her with desperate eyes. "Please, I can't hold it much longer." 24,000 feet. Through the windscreen, Elena could see the ocean far below. Getting closer, she thought of the little boy crying for his mother. The elderly woman she'd helped with her seatbelt. The flight attendant who called her brave. 179 people. 179 lives. Her hand shot forward, gripped the yoke. "This is Falcon 2-1, initiating manual override." The words came automatically, muscle memory from 1,000 training flights, 1,000 combat simulations. Her hands moved across the controls with precision born from years of experience, compensating for asymmetric thrust, adjusting trim, deploying drag rudder. The plane's spiral began to slow. The violent shaking decreased. 40 nautical miles away, an F-22 fighter jet escorting a military transport picked up the radio transmission. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was flying his routine patrol when he heard that call sign. Falcon 2-1. He knew that call sign. Every pilot in the Air Force knew it. "Falcon 2-1? His voice cracked over the radio. "That's impossible. She's been grounded." His wingman responded, "Sir, that transmission came from commercial flight 4447. They declared an emergency 3 minutes ago." Morrison's hands tightened on his stick. "Confirm the call sign." "Confirmed, Falcon 2-1. Morrison felt his blood run cold. Elena Hayes, the pilot blamed for killing her team. the pilot who'd been permanently banned from flying. She was alive, and she was flying a dying commercial aircraft. In the cockpit, Elena continued working with a mechanical efficiency, shutting down the damaged engine, rerouting fuel, stabilizing pressure. Her face was wet with tears, but her hands were steady. The first officer stared at her in shock. You still remember emergency protocols for F-Series aircraft? They're burned into my blood. She adjusted the autopilot, brought the nose up by 2 degrees. The plane leveled out. 21,000 feet. Holding steady, she keyed the radio. This is Falcon 2-1 to any military aircraft in range. I need escort and guidance to nearest emergency landing site. Morrison's voice came through professional despite his shock. Falcon 2-1, this is Raptor 4. We have you on radar. Forming escort now. Within minutes, 2 F-22s flanked the damaged airliner, protecting it, guiding it. Elena's voice came over the radio again, softer now, vulnerable. Raptor 4, 3 years ago, 3 people died under my command. The media said I killed them through arrogance, through incompetence. She paused, took a shaky breath. But the warning system failed. The sensor data lied. I tried to save them. I tried everything. The radio was silent for a long moment. Then a different voice came through, older, authoritative. Falcon 2-1, this is Brigadier General Matthews. We reviewed the black box data from your accident 6 months after you were discharged. You were right. System failure, not pilot error. Elena's world stopped. What? We know the truth. But by the time we confirmed it, you'd already disappeared. We've been trying to find you. The head flight attendant later recalled, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold on to anything. But when I heard her voice say taking control, I stood up straight. That voice, it was a real command. It made me believe we might actually survive. 3 years of carrying guilt that wasn't hers. 3 years of being called a killer. 3 years of living in the shadow of a lie. And in the middle of a crisis, in the moment when she'd broken her promise never to fly again, the truth finally came out. Elena maintained control of the aircraft while the F-22s formed a protective corridor around her. Air traffic control requested identity verification, but the system showed access denied next to her call sign. A young officer in one of the F-22s radioed in, "This is impossible. Falcon 2-1 is banned from flight operations." Elena responded, her voice steady despite the tears still streaming down her face. Is anyone else capable of maintaining this altitude for the next 5 minutes? Silence on the channel. She began issuing commands, transferring remaining fuel to port wing, reducing pressure load, initiating controlled descent. The injured first officer watched her with wide eyes. You still remember all the emergency procedures? I never forgot. I couldn't forget even if I tried. Her hands moved across the controls like she was playing an instrument she'd learned as a child. Every switch, every button, every gauge, all muscle memory. But this time was different. This time she wasn't fighting experimental thrust vectors and faulty sensors. This time she had a chance to do it right. General Matthews' voice came through again. Falcon 2-1, I need you to know something. When we reviewed your accident, we found 17 separate system failures. The warning system that should have alerted you, it malfunctioned. The sensor data you were relying on, completely inaccurate. The backup stabilizers, they failed before you even lost control. Elena's jaw clenched. Why didn't anyone tell me? We tried. You'd gone off grid. We sent letters to your last known address, called every number we had. But you'd vanished. I was hiding from the media, from the families, from myself. The families know now. We briefed them 4 months ago. They know it wasn't your fault. Elena couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. The weight she'd been carrying for 3 years, it wasn't hers to carry. But 3 people were still dead, and nothing could change that. Morrison's voice cut in. Falcon 2-1, recommend heading 270 for emergency landing at Edwards Air Force Base. Runway 18 is being cleared now. Understood. Coming to 270. She banked the aircraft gently. The F-22s matched her movement. staying perfectly positioned on her wings. In the cabin behind her, passengers had stopped screaming. They watched through the windows as military jets escorted them, protecting them. The businessman who'd muttered about her being a killer sat silently in his seat, his face pale. The little boy who'd been crying had calmed down. His mother whispered, "Look, honey, the fighter jets are helping us. We're going to be okay." The elderly woman Elena had helped smiled through her tears. I knew she was special. I could see it in her eyes. Elena focused on the instruments. Airspeed, altitude, heading, fuel remaining. She ran the calculations in her head. They had enough fuel to make Edwards. Barely. Raptor 4, I'm showing 42 minutes of fuel at current consumption. What's our ETA to Edwards? 37 minutes at your current speed. Copy that. She adjusted the throttle slightly. Every drop of fuel mattered now. The first officer finally managed to wrap his injured hand. He looked at Elena with something like awe. I read about your accident. The media said the media was wrong, but I didn't know that until 30 seconds ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't write the headlines. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you just saved almost 200 people. I haven't saved anyone yet. We're still in the air. But her voice held a note of hope now, a note that hadn't been there in 3 years. 23 minutes later, Edwards Air Force Base appeared on the horizon. Elena had flown out of Edwards dozens of times during her test pilot days. She knew every inch of that runway. Raptor 4, I have visual on Edwards, beginning final approach. Copy that, Falcon 2-1, you're cleared for emergency landing. Fire crews and medical teams standing by. She began the descent. The damaged engine was still offline. The right wing had structural damage. The hydraulics were operating at 60% capacity, but she'd landed aircraft in worse condition during training. This was what she'd spent years learning to do. The F-22s pulled up and away, giving her room. Morrison's voice came through one last time. Falcon 2-1, it's an honor to fly with you. Lena felt her eyes sting with fresh tears. Thank you, Raptor 4. She dropped the landing gear, felt the confirmation clunk. Gear down and locked, flaps to landing position. Airspeed 145 and decreasing. The runway stretched out before her, long, flat, safe. 1,000 feet, 500, 300. The plane descended smoothly, no violent shaking, no alarms. Just the steady sound of engines and wind. 100 feet, 50. She pulled back on the yoke gently. The wheels touched concrete with barely a bump. Perfect landing. The plane rolled down the runway, gradually slowing. Emergency vehicles raced alongside them, ready for anything. Elena brought the aircraft to a complete stop. She engaged the parking brake, shut down the engines. Then she slumped back in her seat, her entire body shaking with released tension. The first officer reached over and gripped her shoulder. You did it. You saved us all. Through the windscreen, Elena could see fire crews approaching, ambulances, military vehicles, and standing near the terminal building, a line of people in Air Force uniforms. Her old squadron. They'd heard she was coming. They'd come to welcome her home. In the cabin, when passengers realized they'd landed safely, the silence broke. Applause, sobbing, laughter, people hugging strangers. The businessman who'd judged her made his way to the cockpit. He was crying. I said terrible things about you. I'm so sorry. You saved my life. Lena looked at him with tired eyes. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was right. Still, thank you. She nodded once, then stood on shaky legs and made her way toward the exit. As she stepped off the plane into the desert sunlight, her old squadron commander approached. Colonel Sarah Chen. She'd taken over the squadron after Elena left. Falcon 2-1, Sarah's voice cracked. Welcome home. Elena couldn't hold it together anymore. She broke down. 3 years of pain, guilt, and isolation poured out in racking sobs. Sarah pulled her into a tight embrace. It's okay. You're home now. You're home. The other squadron members surrounded them, a circle of protection, of family. Morrison, who'd escorted her in the F-22, stood at attention nearby. When Elena looked at him, He saluted. She straightened despite her tears and returned the salute. Thank you for guiding me home. It was our privilege, ma'am. The passengers were being evacuated from the plane now. Medical teams checked them for injuries. But everyone kept looking back at Elena. The little boy broke free from his mother and ran to her, wrapped his arms around her waist. You saved us! You're a hero! Elena knelt down to his level. I'm not a hero, sweetheart. I just did what I knew how to do. You are a hero. You're the bravest person ever. His mother came over, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. Thank you for bringing my baby home. Elena couldn't speak, just nodded. As the crowd grew around her, as cameras appeared and reporters shouted questions, Elena quietly slipped away. She walked toward the hangar where maintenance crews were already examining the damaged aircraft. She'd spent 3 years working on engines, on hydraulics, on systems that kept planes in the air. She knew how to fix things, how to make broken things work again. Maybe she could fix herself too. When the aircraft door opened and passengers began to evacuate, there was no cheering, just silence, and bowed heads, and tears of gratitude. The news spread within hours. Banned pilot saves 179 passengers. The people who'd publicly condemned her 3 years ago began posting apologies online. We judged too quickly. We believed the headlines without knowing the truth. Elena Hayes is a hero. We owe her our lives and our apology. The Air Force released an official statement. After thorough investigation, we determined that the accident 3 years ago was caused by multiple system failures, not pilot error. Captain Elena Hayes has been fully exonerated. All disciplinary actions have been expunged from her record. The families of the pilots who died reached out through official channels. Marcus Chen's widow sent a letter. I blamed you for so long. I'm sorry. Marcus would be proud of what you did today. Or Sarah Rodriguez's parents requested a meeting. We need to apologize face to face. Please give us that chance. David Kamar's brother posted on social media. My brother told me once that Elena was the best pilot he'd ever flown with. I should have believed him instead of the media. Thank you for honoring his memory by saving those people. Elena read each message alone in a borrowed office at Edwards. She cried for hours, for the years lost, for the pain that didn't need to happen, for the vindication that came too late, but also for the relief, the impossible, overwhelming relief. Her former squadron members found her there. They didn't say anything, just sat with her. Colonel Chen finally spoke. The Air Force wants to reinstate you. Full rank, full honors. They're offering you a position as chief test pilot at Edwards. Elena looked up, red-eyed. What? You're one of the best pilots we've ever had. We want you back. I don't know if I can. You don't have to decide now. Take time. But know that your home is here. Always has been. The next day, a video went viral on social media. It showed the F-22 squadron performing a special flight formation over Edwards. They flew in a precise pattern that spelled out F-21 in the sky. Falcon 2-1, a tribute, an apology, an honor. The video was viewed 30 million times in the first week. Comments poured in from around the world. This is what redemption looks like. She never stopped being a hero. The world just stopped believing in her. If you're going through darkness, remember Elena Hayes. The truth comes out eventually. Aviation schools began teaching her emergency landing as a case study, not just for the technical skill, but for the courage it took to overcome trauma and fear. A documentary filmmaker requested an interview. Elena declined, but she did agree to speak at the memorial service in London, the one she'd originally been flying to attend. When she stood at this podium in front of the families, her voice shook. For 3 years, I carried the weight of blame. I believed I killed my teammates. I believed I deserved every cruel word, every hateful message. She paused, gathering strength. But Marcus, Sarah, and David wouldn't want me to carry that weight. They'd want me to flaunt. They'd want me to save lives. They'd want me to honor their memory by being the best pilot I could be. She pulled out the small leather notebook, the one with the silver wings engraved on the cover. This belonged to Marcus. He gave it to me the day before the accident. He said, "Write down everything you learn, Elena. Someday you'll teach the next generation." She held it up for everyone to see. "I'm going to keep that promise. I'm going to teach. I'm going to fly high. I'm going to make sure their sacrifice meant something." The families stood and applauded. Some were crying, some were smiling. Marcus's widow approached after the ceremony. She hugged Elena tightly. "He knew you'd find your way back to the sky. He always knew." The silver wing emblem on the notebook, once a symbol of shame and loss, now gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of restoration and honor. If you believe that true strength comes from rising after falling, that redemption is always possible, that the truth eventually prevails. Type in the comments, "I will live with honor." 6 months after the emergency landing, Elena stood on the tarmac at Edwards Air Force Base. She wore her flight suit again, the same one she'd worn 3 years ago, the same patch on the shoulder, Falcon 2-1. But everything felt different now. Colonel Chen approached with a tablet. "Your first students arrive tomorrow, 23 cadets, all top of their class, all requesting to train under you specifically." Elena looked at the list of names. So young, so eager, so full of hope. "I hope I don't let them down." "You won't. You're the best teacher they could ask for." That evening, Elena visited the memorial wall on base, the wall where fallen pilots' names were engraved: Marcus Chen, Sarah Rodriguez, David Kumar. She placed the leather notebook at the base of the wall. Inside, she'd written everything she'd learned from them, every lesson, every memory, every moment of courage they'd shown. "I kept your promise, Marcus. I'm teaching now. I'm flying again. I'm honoring you all." She heard footsteps behind her, turned to see a young cadet standing at attention. "Captain Hayes?" "Yes?" "I'm Cadet Jennifer Martinez. I'll be in your class tomorrow." "At ease, Cadet. What can I do for you?" The young woman relaxed slightly. "I wanted to tell you, my sister was on flight 447. The one you saved. She's alive because of you." Elena's breath caught. "I'm glad she made it home safely. She told me what you did, how calm you were, how you promised everyone would be okay, and you kept that promise." Jennifer pulled out a small box from her pocket. "She wanted me to give you this. She said you left it on the control panel." Elena opened the box. Inside was a silver wing pin, the one she'd worn on her uniform 3 years ago, the one she'd removed the day that she was discharged. "I thought I'd lost this. It fell under the captain's seat. My sister found it after you left. She's been holding on to it, waiting to return it." Elena held the pin in her palm. The metal was still warm from Jennifer's pocket. "Tell your sister, thank you." "I will, ma'am. And ma'am, I chose to become a pilot because of you, because you showed me that mistakes don't define us. Getting back up does." Elena smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in years. "Then I'll see you in class tomorrow, Cadet." Jennifer saluted and walked away. Elena pinned the silver wings back onto her flight suit, right over her heart. Above her, the sun was setting. The sky turned gold and orange and pink. And cutting through that beautiful sky, an F-22 performed a victory roll. Morrison paying tribute. She raised her hand in acknowledgement. Then she turned and walked toward the pilot ready room, toward her future, toward the sky that had always been her home. The leather notebook remained at the memorial wall, but it wasn't abandoned. Every day, cadets would stop and read it, learn from it, be inspired by it. And every page ended with the same 3 words: "They still fly." The silver wing pin, once lost, now restored to its rightful place, gleaming in the sunset. A symbol of redemption, of second chances, of honor reclaimed. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to SN Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.